cases meant waiting to see if what they foretold came about. And so you have the Old Testament prophets foretelling the return of the Israelites from the exile. So, and Ezra 1:1 indicates that the prophecy of Jeremiah is fulfilled when you have those from the exile returning in 539. So this would be a way to check a prophet to see whether he or she was foretold.
And you don't think that this applies to Prophet Muhammad, do you? This was part of his
okay. In my awareness, he did not foretell things in the future that can yet be checked. He did speak about the end day and so forth, but I don't think of any place in the Quran where he foretold something that happened within the historical period now.
You want to follow up?
I just wondered if there's anything, you say that you don't know of anything that he foretold that has come about, but do you have any evidence of things that he foretold that came falsely, that did not happen the way he foretold them, that would show him as a false prophet?
I don't think of anything at this point. But I think
just before we move to the other point, I'd like to hear a response because they have
get an answer also from a Muslim side.
Yes, based on the criteria that Dr. Woodberry mentioned, how do you see it? Does it apply to Prophet Muhammad?
The three conditions mentioned earlier, that the person in contact with the Spirit of God, and that's what the Quran is really all about, speaks on behalf of God. Actually, the Quran itself addressed the Prophet, say, "Qul," say, "O Muhammad." Even the style of the Quran shows that he was told. So in that sense, yes. Secondly, that he may face sacrifice and persecution. Yes, he did. And was very patient and very forgiving. Number three, that he would not violate all their teaching. It's a matter of interpretation. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not violate the older teaching of all the prophets. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. He contradicted the misinterpretation in Muslim understanding of theologian who came afterwards. So in that sense, he did not contradict the established tradition of Tawheed. That's why, and this is not only a Muslim view, Hans Kung says that the concept, the purity or the concept of monotheism that has been preached by all of the prophets in the Old Testament and confirmed by Prophet Muhammad, he admits, should never be compromised. So again, it depends how you interpret it, which is the truth.
Can we move to the other criteria?
But in addition, there are just three things I'd like to add. One is that he should claim to be a prophet, number one. Not people make a claim about him. That is relevant. Number two, the question of prophecies. I accept what Mr. Woodberry said, that, and there is no evidence whatsoever that the Prophet ever made a prophecy that came to be false. But I disagree with him respectfully in saying that there have been no prophecies made. There have been numerous prophecies made,
no,
some of which...
that have been fulfilled.
Yes,
there is the last day
during his time and after his time.
In
For
the
example,
Quran?
Yes, in the Quran there is reference to that. The defeat of the Byzantian, of the Romans. There is also mention about what will happen to Abu Lahab. I'm just giving highlights. Abu Lahab, that he will die as an unbeliever. What will happen in the hadith about the Muslims being victorious over the Persians. The Muslims at one time will conquer Constantinople. And there are also other signs that's still waiting in terms of the Day of Judgment, and some of which are amazing and have already came to pass. When he speaks about the iron speaking, probably a reference to the radio, of people going to the mosque on something looks like the saddle but not saddles. People driving to the mosques now in cars. And there are still others about the known as the alamat as-sa'a, the signs, minor and major signs of the hour. But as Dr. Woodberry said, and I completely agree with this, there has been no single prophecy, and there are many prophecies that the Prophet made that proved to be untrue. And finally, there's one aspect that I leave to the next topic, that the Prophet also should have some evidence that he's a prophet by something unusual. Not just small tricks of magic or anything, something really profound, stunning, challenging, that shows he's a prophet, like Moses, the birth of Jesus, his miracles, and the Quran in the case of the Prophet. But that's
in fact, this in itself, this question is a whole topic. You see what I'm saying? So I'm sure every one of us over here would have a list of items to add. So I would kindly ask you to move to the other people, if you don't
I think
mind.
I wished we started with the question of the gentleman. What are the criteria of the Prophet? Discuss it in detail.
That's true.
How does it apply to Prophet Muhammad or not?
Certainly in the Old Testament, there were the court prophets, there were schools of prophets, there were true prophets, and there were false prophets. There were many prophets. And it was always a struggle to determine who was the true prophet. And the government, of course, had their own, and who would speak for them, and the schools had theirs, and then you had the others. So it was a constant tension. It wasn't always clear at the time who was the true prophet. In fact, often the true prophet at the time was persecuted, turned out, denied, and it wasn't until later that, you know, he was, in a sense, rewarded and considered to be a true prophet.
After his prophecy,
Yeah.
stood the test of time.
Yes, after a time, after events sort of rolled on, and but often at the time they were persecuted, and many were killed.
Okay, why don't you move to the other question?
Maybe it's good to give, I think, I suggest we give a courtesy to the sisters first. They seldom have a chance, and then come to Brother Hamza, and then...
I have several comments. First of all, when everyone was speaking about, at the beginning, why we believe that the Prophet Muhammad was not in fact a prophet, or was not a prophet, but is not superseding.
Please keep the mic closer.
Oh, sorry. Almost everyone mentioned, I don't believe that the Prophet Muhammad's message is relevant because the Bible says it's not, because it contradicts what the Bible says, because it contradicts what Jesus came to tell me. I don't need another prophet because this is what the Bible says. With all due respect, I don't believe that that's a fair and honest examination. As Muslims, what we try to do is take the Bible for itself and as itself. We examine that. Does that make sense? Is that verifiable? Not can we understand it, can we verify it? Is that actually what it says? Is it historically accurate? If that's not the case, on those grounds, we from the Bible itself, do not believe that Jesus was in fact the Son of God. I think that you have to take the Quran for itself and examine it in and of itself, and then say, not because the Bible says, but because I don't believe the Quran is reliable, then that would be an acceptable reason. Secondly, I think that we have a basic difference in the understanding of the concept of God, in that you were talking about the way of Jesus is to overcome sin. The way of Jesus is to come and conquer sin and to conquer evil. God was struggling with how to conquer evil. To the Muslims, this is an abhorrent concept. We don't believe that God needs to struggle with evil. Evil is under him. Evil is irrelevant to him. I mean, we struggle with evil, and God helps us struggle with evil, but he does not himself need to attain the ability to forgive by any act, sacrifice or otherwise. He can forgive because that's his prerogative, because he made us and he knows what will happen. That's all.
Okay, I don't want any comments, okay? I want to take a few more comments from the audience over here before we move into you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, let me thank you, all of you, for this opportunity. And this is something really worthwhile to listen to. But let me say this as individual, not very well educated. Let me go back as individual. I lived with the Jews before I came to the United States, and I attended a Christian school for many years. I born from Muslim parents, and I came to this country to seek a freedom, political freedom. I was listening to you here for 2 days. I got a little bit confused sometime, with all my respect to our religion. When I raised as a small boy, I been told that through my Quran and my parents, I believe in Judaism and I believe in Christianity. And unfortunately, with my living in this country or the Western world, when you mention Muslim, sometimes you have to spell it. And when you say Quran, they don't know what I'm talking about. But I know about the books of the Jewish, I know the book of the Christian, and Islamic force you to believe on them. to make things simple in 20th century for the Christian, unfortunately I don't have any of my cousins here sitting today, how can